getting married and saying your vows is one of the most intimate things you'll kind of do. Like, who are you comfortable doing it in front of?
Yeah,
Whoa,
that's good.
nice.
It's the first time that you know everyone.
There are things that cost what they cost.
Yeah.
And then all of your other costs are directly attributed to your guest numbers.
So thank you for coming, first of all.
Thank you for having us.
Cheers, mate.
Where do we start? We start from the start, which was the proposal.
Nice. It'll be mostly, I'll take the reins on that one.
Yeah,
you can
your time
talk
to
about
shine.
the rest of the wedding planning. But well, I suppose it's weird. A lot of guys will relate. You feel like your partner knows when it's coming, or they seem to pester you or start getting friends to drop pictures of rings, all in the meantime when you've already organised it. Our proposal story starts with lockdown, really. So I was looking at getting the ring, and I have a jeweler in the family. My uncle's a jeweler, and we managed to sneak out there, Alice's sister and I, and get some stuff organised. The ring was getting made by him, which was pretty special. And so what was good is that Alice probably didn't suspect much was going on at the time. Because there was nothing we could do about it. But
I think I had been, like, I was at that time, I can't remember what lockdown it was, but it was that, like, just real mundane, nothing's happening, the world's locked down, like, it's so unfair, why us, why me? You start thinking, oh, how many, I'm going to be this age. Like, you really overthink it. So I had no idea. It was just so not on my radar because of what was happening. So that was sneaky.
I had Alice's younger sister's help when it came to style and what she might like. So we got that sorted. And then as we started coming out of lockdown, I think you were allowed gatherings of 10 people. And I went and spoke with Alice's dad, which was daunting, but he's got a funny man, but it was a good convo, and we had a bit of a laugh and got his approval, and also Alice's mum, which is really important to Alice and her mum and her dad. So they were on board and put a little plan into action. We arranged for Alice and a couple friends to have like a beach day up at not Long Bay, is it Long Bay?
We didn't know because that was part of it.
Yeah, they were going out to the beach, and in the meantime, Alice's mum and I got a lot of things I pieced together from friends, and I was making a little beach setup. So printed out a lot of Polaroid photos that we had. Cushions, a little cheese board and bottle of champagne, and some blankets and pillows, and
it was out of a Pinterest.
So
it
was this
beautiful.
at the same place, at the same beach?
So she thought she was going to go to like the nearest beach to where they were, like Takapuna, but luckily the friends with her and her sister said, we're going to go up here, which I think you were a little bit like, why
honestly,
are we going that far?
It's amazing what can go on behind your back. And you have no idea about, and then after it all happens, you're like, oh, how did I? But yeah, that was the only, in relation to the beach, because my sister was flatting in Northcote, and weirdly enough, and I've never been interested in it before, but the Melbourne Cup was on that day, and Rhys is quite a bettor, and there's a lot of chat about it, and for some reason, like I say, I've never been interested before. I kind of wanted to watch the race. So I was looking at my watch, and the girls were like, oh, we'll go to Takapuna around 2 o'clock. And I was we'll go to the beach, around 2 o'clock. And I was like, sweet, let's go to Taka. It's right there. And then I can get back and watch the Melbourne Cup. And my sister was like, oh, nah, we're going to go to Long Bay. And that's like on the other side of the shore. And I was like, but the sneaky thing is they got my other friend to suggest Long Bay, because I'd never pushed back on something that she suggested, but had my sister said it, I would have fought with her about it. So Mickey, who was one of my bridesmaids, she was like, oh, like Long Bay, it suits me better. She's got, she has quite a sore back and like chronic back condition. So she's like, oh, it's better for me, it's easier. And I was like, oh, say no more. Like, we'll go there. And that was the only little thing I was like, that's weird, but definitely not enough to be like,
Yeah, it's actually, I forgot that it was Melbourne Cup. It's a weird one. I don't think I've missed a Melbourne Cup since I turned 16, really. It's it's big in our family, and I must have been not thinking clearly that day. But
you had more important things to do.
Yeah.
You'd also said that you were at work the day before, like working a late shift, which would have been unusual. But again, I was like,
yeah, didn't take it on board. And, so while they were at one end of the shore, Alice's mum and I were at the other, moving food and all these things. And she put a shift in. She must have really wanted Alice to get married, because we were carrying like crates and all sorts across. Is it Long Bay? Yeah, which is quite. You've obviously been there, but it's a long way to the beachfront from the car park, and so we set it all up, which is really cool, and tried to time it because things are blowing around, and it was really funny. There was quite a few people around, and I was quite nervous. But cool, people were coming up, old married couples, giving some life advice, and then. I joked with Alice. There was a couple ladies there, probably in their 30s or 40s, who were hoping it was them. They said that they would happily wish their partner was putting this effort in. But and the girls turned up. Alice's sister and her friend did a good job. They kind of managed to film it. Her coming around the corner, and you were pretty shocked, eh?
I was so shocked. And then once you realised what was happening, I looked back and was like, Alice, how could you not have known?
Yeah.
But I was so shocked. It's like I say, it's amazing what can go into planning something that you have no idea about. And then on top of getting engaged, which is a massive moment, you take in all that other stuff, like who's been involved, who's helped set this up, like, and it's really amazing. It's really, really cool.
And I've also seen I've recently shot an engagement. So what we did was we did a couple shoot, and then I had to take them away from there, like from one spot to the other where they had arranged, the friends had arranged. So what happens is, because it was a public place, you see all these people gathering and like waiting for it to happen. Was it the same thing at yours?
Yeah, it was.
There, yes. When I was walking down,
Yeah.
it's like this little
Beach access
thing, and I was walking past people, and they'd obviously seen what was set up, and there were 3 girls who were like way too dressed up to be at the beach, like going for their little picnic, because that was part of their ruse. So they must have put 2 and 2 together that we were the ones that were going to that thing. And she was like really overly smiling at me, and I remember thinking at the time, I was like, she was really friendly, but hi,
they want to hang around.
And again, I literally just thought,
but
she's super friendly.
Not say anything.
And then when I like all these things are adding up, but there were a couple that were kind of like lurking in the background, which was kind of in the shot.
Yeah, that was unfortunate. But one lady came up and was like, and pretty much started taking photos of me from like a meter away.
Yeah,
and I
knew that Alice was really close. I was like, oh hi, and can you please go away? And she like wouldn't listen. She's like, oh, I'll be here, and I was like, no, like you're
it's so sweet.
I set up a little. I set up a phone, I think, to try and film it, and I had a phone in my pocket to record the audio, and I'd written a little speech, and it's hard. I wish I could remember.
I didn't know you had that.
Iconic to us, but I didn't press the button, or it didn't work, and I was gutted because I was like, I haven't written it down, and I think it was on an old phone, so I've kind of lost that. So I could have used a couple of these, Rob, to back it up, but
I think I pretty much remember.
And during lockdown, none of this was available.
I couldn't have done much. And what was probably cool, the second aspect of it was the girls then. They hung around for a bit. They kind of left, and we had a moment together, which was special to savour. And then second bit of a surprise was what I managed to get both our families, immediate families, to come down about half an hour later. And then Alice was facing me, and got her to turn around, and they all got to share in the moment. So anyone, there's lots of different ways. People get proposals to overseas or whatever. But I thought that was a really cool, special moment to have.
So you didn't know they were all behind you?
No. That just worked out. Like I was kind of facing the water, and you were facing that way. Oh, was it? So and then you said something,
I just proposed,
and I was shocked all over again. And they had more cheese boards and more wine, and then like we stood in this like kind of socially distanced circle bubble thing, and
it was good.
And
that
like
they
had champagne down there, and
the 10 people, whatever. But
it was. I don't know what I thought I wanted for my proposal. Like I think it was something like that. Like we joked that you think that I ruined one of your other ideas when I was trying to explain that I don't need something or don't want something like really grand and something that I would know that a proposal was following it. Yeah, it was a helicopter thing in Waiheke.
Oh yeah, I had this idea, and I'm glad I didn't because it would have been a lot more expensive. But like Stony Ridge or something to come in and land, and then walk in, and then have like not pretty much not a wedding, but a lot of friends and family there for a day, and propose in front of them, and then have like a big party. When I was, but everyone having like a day out on Waiheke.
When I was whinging about lockdown and not being proposed to, and I was like, I don't need something fancy. I don't need a helicopter in Waiheke.
Yeah, just a burger ring.
And he was like,
yeah.
I don't know if I trust you that you actually want to do that.
I don't think I would have got the helicopter. Could have used the work one, but
no. But what happened was amazing, and like from my perspective of the day, there were all, like just again having no idea, but there were all these little things like I said, we were so dressed up to go to the beach, and the girls were just like, we haven't like taken nice photos together, and like all these little random girl things, and like let's get dressed up, do our nails, do our hair, and like go have a nice picnic. And it's like, yeah, that sounds amazing. And there's this photo that one of the girls took, and I'm sitting there, and my sister's doing my makeup, and my hands are out this, and she's doing my nails. Yeah. And they're like looking between each other, and she's like, she's got no idea.
Yeah, it was good.
No idea.
It was nice that it all came together. I think I would have been gutted if you'd picked it or had kind of known. So
I should have, like, looking back, I'm like, oh, but no, it was amazing.
Past the old OCD girl that she is.
Oh yeah, I mean.
Yeah, but hey, it makes such a good story, right?
Easy for me to remember. But
you put a lot of effort in it as well. Not just one, but two surprises.
Yeah. Well, it was interesting to try and piece it together. And I know it must guys that are watching or listening, it's a daunting task, right? You get one shot at it. Potentially two, if you like some of them, mate.
I think as a girl,
Jacob.
I think as a girl, like you envisage that moment like your whole life, but it's very easy to forget that it's a massive moment for the guy as well. Like they are the ones putting themselves out there, having done all that admin.
Yeah,
and it's very easy to overlook. But when I saw all that effort, I was like,
yeah,
they do know what they're doing.
It's tough these days too. I imagine there's always been, like, I suppose, pressure on guys, but now there's big social factors and massive expectations getting bigger and bigger. But I like that. It's nice to find a balance between effort and something that it was a place that was important to us. It was this and that, and it can be difficult to come up with ideas, but it was pretty simple, right? It was a picnic on a beach, pretty common one. Not the first guy to do it, but.
But hey, she said it was just like out of Pinterest.
Yeah. Oh, it was amazing.
I can't wait to see the photo.
Honestly, I was like, whoa, nice.
But that means that you have to do more stuff for wedding then.
I was like, where did you go?
No, that was my
work
race.
Here is done.
It was cool.
I've just had an idea as well. I'm thinking like what we should do is that now that I've shot two of your group friends in the group, we should get all four and talk about weddings.
That'd be good.
That would be so cool.
True weddings.
It'd
be good crossover.
Because then you have like your own version of your wedding. But then they may have like a different version of your wedding.
That's
and because you were the MC at their wedding. And you were a guest, so you'll have your own version of their wedding.
That's quite cool.
That's just in catching up after the wedding. That was one of our favourite parts, is you hear different stories from different people that were in different areas. And
the beach day, the next day.
Like that was honestly, you'd go and catch up with your different groups and they'd be like, oh my gosh, this happened. Oh my gosh, this happened and this happened.
And you had no idea.
And slowly, because it passes in a blur, like everyone says, you piece together the whole day. It was, I loved that part, actually, following the wedding. So that would be cool.
On the next day of the...
just like for weeks, once we were home and settled, we'd go catch up with people for dinner and naturally talk about it. And there were heaps of different things, where people were like, oh my gosh, they were up on the hill for ages doing this,
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
and this person was doing this. You just have no idea.
Yeah.
So you
Story,
piece it together, and you're like, oh,
Yeah,
awesome.
and their own stories of like getting to the wedding,
Yeah.
especially because yours was outside of Auckland.
Yeah.
So a lot of people
Yeah.
traveled as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. So like their own stories of getting there, getting back, and
That's when I first started to feel like, obviously I was excited for our wedding, but super like, oh my gosh, when it was the day before, because a lot of people had taken that Friday off and had traveled down, and miraculously it was really beautiful weather, and heaps of people were posting on their socials like the pictures of the beach and their campsites, and like they were away for a holiday, and I was like, you're here for a wedding,
nice,
and it was really cool. I loved seeing that as well.
That's awesome.
That was
it's good.
Cool. So after the proposal was done, what was the next steps in your wedding planning? Like, how did you come up with the date? And then once the date was decided, what were the next steps, like the venue, those kind of things?
So I could talk about the first steps, and then it'll actually get into the planning of how we got to there. The first, I suppose, it was a little bit of a downtime and telling people, and then we started coming together, being like, when do we wanted it to be in summer, and probably with enough time runway to sort things. So we were looking at, it was November, right? So we were looking at the following kind of November
Summer-ish
to February.
Okay,
and it was confusing though, because
when did we get married?
it was after that. Like I was assuming there'd be heaps of COVID backlog still. So kind of as soon as we were engaged, that was on my mind, especially for a summer wedding, like how many things had been pushed back and people had rescheduled, and at the time that we wanted would have been like a year from the time that people had to cancel. Yeah. So I was like, we got to kind of move, and it was really hard to know what to do first.
Yeah. At the best of times, you probably know better that it's a year to 18 months kind of out, and we and that was years. It was more so because there'd been so many weddings cancelled in the following year, and what I'd say January, February is probably your peak, maybe March, and then or you can maybe have it November, December. It's interesting with weather because I grew up playing a lot of cricket, and our season was always like whether it be at school or club, like your November and your December was always like wet, and you're like, oh, it's supposed to be kind of coming in spring, summer, but so we looked at things, and it was funny because the January date that we looked at was like traditionally really dry and hot. I don't know, you can't pick it on a day, be like, oh, we're doing all the right things. So we looked at that, and then we started shopping around Auckland. So we live in Hobsonville, and out through here, through QMU, there's a lot of venues. And so we started looking locally and piecing it together. Some things we liked from some we didn't. Like they had maybe the party aspect, but not like the venue for the ceremonies. Ceremonies were a bit like tick box. And we're like, oh, it's not really like what we'd want. Yeah. And then it started getting further and further out.
But we hadn't really nailed down. We were still umming and ahhing whether we wanted to do that venue thing or do the marquee thing. And we were really torn about like what's just going to be the easiest or the best option. And we kept kind of coming back to the venue thing, but it was just something that was like,
wasn't for what we
really want to do the marquee thing.
And then especially with some, I think we look some locally, and I think you've been to a fair few weddings where friends or family have been married, and so you kind of want your own spot.
True.
Makavina locally, Jacob and Gabby, which will be on episode 1. I think I'll call it now. I don't know. It could be 2, could be 3. We went to fortunate enough to go to their wedding. It's beautiful, and we really liked. Alice had been to a work one there a couple of years prior.
I was like, I'm getting married here.
Yeah, you could do, but you're like, oh, you want to have.
I decided
you want to have your
own.
It
has everything. It's
spot
beautiful.
and flair, and so we're like that. We kind of almost crossed that off the list, right? And then a couple other venues were similar, and then it started getting a little bit further out, like Waimalku, Muriwai. There's a place in Beachlands, which is southeast, and then we kind of started thinking, well, if we did choose one of these venues, we're going to have to require transport. In Auckland, so big, like people are all going to have to get here. Yeah. Or you put a bus on back into the town, but then people like friends, most of our friends and family on the North Shore or the coast. Okay. Yeah. And then you got a couple coming from like East Auckland, and you're going, well, you can't really centralise that. And so it's not really an Auckland wedding in a way. It's still like got this travel aspect. So that's where I think we started turning our minds to doing the farm kind of marquee or the coastal beach thing that we wanted, and it being outside of Auckland. Either there's a couple spots up north. What's it called? Not Cowrie. There's one up like Pie Way, which is similar to what we did.
Okay,
I'll try to find the name, or the Coromandel. And we really liked the Coromandel. How did that pop up?
Well, I was like, the Coromandel has pretty beautiful, stable weather in summer.
Yeah.
But even prior to that, like, the venue was also wrapped up in, I think the two things that I really, like, were really important, obviously, was a venue and a photographer. And we know that we wanted to use, we know that we wanted to use you. So it was like, I think there was a situation where it was like, the venue was available, but you had another wedding.
Yeah.
And it was, and maybe there was one other vendor, I can't remember which one it was, but that was like a puzzle.
Yeah.
You need to lock in your venue, but you also need to kind of lock in your photographer and this
band.
And just, it's a perfect storm. So that was, figuring out that first piece was kind of the first thing. But then Coromandel popped up, one, because I honestly thought the weather would be like more of a stable kind of thing in the Coromandel. And then, like Rhys said, we were getting to the extremities because we decided, I think we drew a line in the sand with the marquee thing. We were like, this is what we really want. Let's just make it happen.
Because we started thinking a bit more about how we wanted our wedding to feel rather more so than look in a way. But I think that we started leading with like, we want to have big numbers, or big for us, which was like 100, 120. I suppose that's pretty standard wedding.
So that was your 120.
Yeah.
Did you have 120?
Yeah, we had about 118.
Yeah, 100 was in the back of my mind again because of the COVID thing. Yeah. And then venues kind of cap at that anyway.
Yeah,
but
there was a rule for COVID, wasn't it? 100, which
budget.
So we're like, well, value for money wise, maybe that would be better. And then we wanted people to walk away from it remembering stories, or that more so than tablecloths. So that was probably I don't know, girls, and we were similar on the same page for it, but I suppose girls probably more dream of their wedding for like certain aspects. But I was kind of thinking, like, I was thinking more band and feeling. And we kind of agreed, like, we thought a marquee with I don't know, it was Irishish music, pub music,
just
food
truck.
trucks.
Just a two-man band, but it was really good.
And the food truck aspect, and very Kiwiana, I suppose, like on the coast, Coromandel beachside farm aspect. And we thought, that would be us, and then we kind of went from there. And
but again, funnily enough, like, we decided on the marquee thing, and then we locked in 12 tables, who I actually just think I came across and didn't even look for anyone else. Like, I thought they had everything. And then I was like, I don't actually have a venue yet. Like, again, it was like, so these pieces fit, but this piece didn't fit. And I asked them for venue recommendations, and they put us on to the Orua Beach House and the Sea Grotto.
So sorry to get this right. So you got the 12 table first.
Yeah. I decided I wanted to use them.
To use them for decor and because they've got amazing stuff. I've seen them at so many different weddings.
Oh, incredible!
And then they directed you to the venue.
Yeah, I had seen it in my kind of a little bit of research, but it's not, or it wasn't when we were planning like a well-established wedding venue.
Okay.
They got two spots, so one's the house at the end of the farm, and I spoke to the vendor. It's pretty much bought it as a farm, had the farm stay house, converted that into a wedding venue, and then kind of self-marketed, right? And it's got a beautiful spot, but that house, when we looked at, was booked out for like 18 months, and you have to book 4 kind of nights there, and it was a little bit more out of our budget. But they had created at the other end of the farm the Sea Grotto, which overlooks nice waterways, and built a little.
It's a purpose-built marquee area, really.
Deck out there, and it was a lot more affordable, and it was ability to piece the marquee and stuff on. So we thought, that was great. I think I don't credit it to ours, but I think there was weddings in between ours, and now it's a lot more social following.
I imagine it's massively
probably
taken
more
off.
booked out.
But 12
I'm
tables
shooting
really
one
pushed
there
that.
next season at the house.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, I haven't shot there yet.
The house looks stunning and
Yeah.
guests stay there.
Yeah.
A lot of guests do the marquee thing there as well, and they
Okay.
just
Have
have
both.
That.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was yeah, and then we went down and visited, and there were kind of 2 dates, and then you go back to your
Yeah.
okay, was Rob available on this date? Was it
Yeah.
like, and then
It all,
let's just lock
all
it in.
aligned, was it January 20th?
January 21st.
Nice.
Yeah, it's
Yeah,
nice.
still
Good
got
on you.
6 months in.
But, yeah, I just remember in those initial planning stages, like that puzzle that I talk about, like you have you set your kind of theme and idea, and you start reaching out to vendors, and you just be like, okay, they're available. Oh my gosh, it's like it works, like book.
It's hard to pull the trigger on it because you're like, if you don't, you were really, Alice was really good at it, piece it together, liaise with everyone, and then the minute that they aligned.
If anyone needs a spreadsheet.
Yeah, that was a good shout. And so we pulled, we were nervous about weather, no backup options, all this. We thought, we got one crack at it, or it'll be what it is, and which is not usual for us, right?
Yeah.
But,
you kind of lock in your big fundamental things, your band, your food, your photographer, and your venue, and you do that early. And then there's a really long period that there's actually nothing to do.
Yeah.
And it's weird, and every day you're like, what should I be doing?
Yeah.
There's just nothing to do.
Okay.
And that's what I found.
That's a different one.
Yeah,
it was a
because that's
long
all done,
runway.
and you just, like you just put your faith in your vendors, because they know what you're doing, they're doing, and
So
I don't know what I'm doing.
About 14 months.
That's what I was going to
about
ask. So
18 months. November to the following Jan. So
about 14 months.
15 months.
Yeah.
And we did a lot of that lock-in stuff around a year out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Again,
then it was probably
COVID and
4 to 6 months of not much.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, you do, like, you kind of choose your bridal party, and you start looking at dresses. I guess that was the next thing for me.
Yeah.
But I mean,
I think
there seemed to be a long period of
But you also did this differently. A lot of people, what they do is they set the date first and then try and look for people. Because even my contact form says the date of the wedding and then the location of the wedding, because that's like 95% of the couples have the date in mind. So, but you did it differently. So that was cool as well.
We would set on any particular date.
We didn't mind anything. We wanted it to be summery and dry, but that second date was in February, which was probably going to be better. But
that I felt like that would be better for weather.
Glad we didn't, because it was floods and hurricanes and road slips, and
that's right.
Yeah, we were really lucky.
It was an interesting season last season.
That would be one thing you'd say to people is, unless you have family flying over or something like that, a day, nothing really to get hung up on. As long as it takes away a lot of stress. Yeah, doing it in reverse than having a particular date in mind and then unable to facilitate it. Yeah,
we knew what our priorities were, and that's more kind of what we went off like with having the vendors that we really wanted. Yeah.
So the main thing different with your wedding was that it was out of town. So you had it how far? Like 3.5 hours?
About 2 to 2.5, 3.
Say 3
hours.
Because
about 3.
So 3 hours away from the city. Now, what did that bring? Any challenges, or was it?
Yeah, I was really hung up on inconveniencing people.
Yeah. So you wanted to make it as easy as possible.
Yeah, and a lot of people say, like, it's your day, do what you want. But you just get really hung up on that. But again, so many people said to us, like, oh my gosh, it's you make a weekend of it. Yeah. We'd love to. And we know that we wouldn't hesitate to travel for our friends or, for a wedding that you're lucky enough to be invited to. Yeah. So that was the first thing. The second thing was accommodation in the Coromandel in summer. And that was another thing that really was make or break for that area. The top 10 hot water beach campground were amazing. Yeah. They were, I couldn't believe that. I rang them one day and just said, hey, we're getting married on this in this time, which is middle of January, middle of school holidays.
Peak time.
What kind of do you suggest? Can we blanket book your all your availability now, hand that over to our guests? And they're like, yeah, of course. And they listed so many cabins. I think if we counted every single bed that they were able to provide, it provided for all of our guests.
Yeah,
Oh,
pretty
wow.
much.
Obviously, some booked Airbnbs
Yeah.
and stayed elsewhere, but they were so good. Like, they were holding it till like November before the wedding. Anything not booked then, they just released. No issues, no
True.
fees,
Oh, wow, that
nothing.
was
They were
really
incredible.
Yeah, it was great. We set
Yeah.
our RSVP just prior, 3-4 weeks prior to that, so that we knew. And then, because Airbnb and I thought, there'll be heaps of options, you know. And then when we jumped on, even a long time out, they started to thin. And then some guests that hadn't organised much kind of looked towards it at the end. There's like nothing there, and so you go, oh geez. So that was great. They have little. They've won a lot of awards in that space, but they had little like 2-bedroom cabins, and some of our friends were in tents. And what was cool at the time, I think they ended up being about 40 to 50 guests there. Yeah, they were partying and stuff there the night before.
The hot water beach was right
you
there.
You guys could have just gone there.
I know.
Yeah, it would have saved a lot of
After
hassle.
party.
Yeah, that was a massive, because that was one thing that we were like, we're not going to be able to facilitate or try to organise everything for everyone. But there was a couple other places down there that we tried, and they were like the opposite. They're like, no, it's reserved for our renewal customers, and even though it's not booked, that doesn't open till like August. And like, we can't
run
certainty.
that gauntlet. Yeah.
So we were a bit nervous there for a second. We felt like we'd booked everything, and we're going to make it tough for people.
Because I remember Alice did ask me as well, like, if you want to book it now.
Before we put it out.
But we were going to come back on the day, so
the other thing was the transport thing, because being a small town, no Uber, no taxis, and that was another thing. And we reached out to a lot of like bus companies down there, but they were booked.
I was surprised.
Booked.
They were booked for other weddings, or had kind of shut down for COVID, or were being used. They were like the tour shuttle buses and that kind of stuff, but they were all booked. So that was the next.
Or the pricing was ridiculous.
Decision.
I couldn't believe, like, for one, we were just looking for shuttles from 2 or 3 spots to and from the wedding, and it was going to be just like, I don't know, I can remember it was like 1,500 to 3 to 4
it was
grand.
Almost,
What?
Yeah,
Just
one of them.
to and from.
Yeah, one of the local like tourist.
Because they kind of
vendors.
said you have to be. It's like we're working from kind of like 2:00 till the end of the wedding, because you're kind of on standby. And
I was surprised. It's like it's one person's. I know it's an inconvenience, but one person's wages, the operating cost and a bit of profit, which we expected. But I was like, wow, it's really crazy. But we, another DIY aspect we started ringing around Auckland. Small minivan hires, and got on to one of the companies out west, and it was going to be just about $1,000 for 3 days. Yeah. So we picked it up on the Friday.
It was the ugliest bus I've ever seen.
Monday. Charged one of my friends with being the bus driver, which he loved. And,
and that's just it. And your friends are so keen to just muck in and be part of it.
Yeah.
Like, we provided him with a list, and then people were talking about how awesome he was, and he was playing music. And
he tells me a funny story. Got off when he did the last trip. I think it was about 3 trips to and from the campground, and he got off the bus. When people were getting on, they didn't know who he was, didn't really talk to him.
They didn't know he was a guest. They thought he was just a driver.
He dropped everyone off, and then he turned the bus off, locked the door, and started walking with them to the wedding. And they're like, why is the bus driver coming with us? He had his little role. But that was, it all
worked
came together.
really well. I was nervous about that right up until, it's a big responsibility for someone to drive that bus. And it was a rickety road. Be the sober driver.
And I was fortunate my stepfather doesn't really drink, so he took the shift on the way home.
That was a last minute
kind of
thing,
one, which is a big effort, but that was great. And that was a hard. It was a bit of a spanner in the works, because you don't want guests to come and it's
Work.
rural and we can't drink, or everyone has to have a sober driver. And you're trying to you've put on food and alcohol. You want everyone to party, and most of our, I suppose, friends and family, I'd say about 90% would have been drinkers.
Yeah.
And a lot of heavy drinkers.
It was a good party.
Yeah. And so that was great to have that. And then there was smaller groups who had a couple of natural sober drivers. So that really came together, because that was hard. You stressed about that.
Yeah.
But
that was challenging. There were quite a few cars.
Yeah.
Some people even bought their camper vans and stayed, which was another really awesome thing about the venue. There were 2, I think, that ended up.
We had the venue for 3 days, which was great. So Friday to Sunday.
Really?
Yeah. No pack, and 12 tables did the full install and pack down.
Also, it's not the marquee there is not a permanent thing.
No, yeah.
They
So they
came
came
in,
from
yeah.
Tauranga?
Yeah, they're
or
based in Tauranga,
Yeah.
and
they set up
they
the day
come
before,
set up
Okay.
on the Friday.
Yeah.
pack down.
We watched them set up, and they're amazing, honestly. And
Yeah.
it shows in their photos and just their attention to detail. Like a lot of their structures and their tables are all wood.
Yeah.
They repaint them for
Yeah.
every new wedding,
Yeah.
so it looks brand
I've seen
new.
them do
Dance
that
floor.
as
I
well.
was like, because we were trying to have a rehearsal, and they're like, you can't, like the floor's wet. I'm like,
yeah,
what?
Yeah.
But
yeah.
yeah,
it's
they
good.
do all of that the day before.
Yeah.
But that's why that higher period for the venue.
We looked at getting teepees and tenting options, but
Oh, we
it,
looked at
it
all
wasn't as cost effective as we would have hoped.
Yeah.
But could have created a bit of a tent village, which would have been really cool.
Yeah, but when hot water came to the party,
Yeah.
that was a massive stress off. And then
10 minutes.
that bus, I think
Yeah.
that got nicknamed the Rolling Turd. It was like this brown bus.
Yeah.
It was like so old,
Yeah,
but
did its job.
oh, it was amazing.
And-
It did its
and
job.
It was great because we took a lot of things down. So
Yeah.
we packed the bus full of equipment, speakers
Yeah.
and microphones
True.
and chili bins and all sorts. And we strapped in the seats and
Yeah.
drove it down on the Friday.
It was way bigger than
Nice.
I thought it was going to be. In the morning that we left on the Friday,
Yeah.
we'd like kind of scheduled, I think, my parents, your parents, and a couple of friends with utes
Yeah.
and the bus to like meet at our place to pack all the stuff
Yeah.
because
Yeah.
there was a lot. And then the bus arrived, and Rhys and one of his groomsmen, Dan, packed everything on the bus, and then everyone started rolling up with their cars and just had nothing to do.
Yeah.
I'd like got this massive shout of coffee, and everyone
Yeah.
was just standing in the driveway because
Yeah.
it just all fit.
Yeah,
it was
great.
amazing.
It came
That bus
came together well.
was, yeah,
Yeah.
it was good. But yeah, they were the main challenges with
Yeah.
being
I'd
out of Auckland.
definitely
And
recommend
then the
putting it
only
on.
other thing I thought, like, there was a lot of admin to do once we got back to Auckland. Like that
Oh.
day after
Oh,
our
yeah.
wedding, it was like pack everything. We drove the bus back and then unload everything. So we had like multiple cars to get back. Like it wasn't that kind of
Wasn't,
stay down honeymoon period.
Yeah.
Straight after the wedding, like we were busy.
we packed it up.
We were busy.
Yeah, we saw some friends on the way back, and then we got home about 10 or 11 and we unpacked the bus.
Yeah. So that was
Yeah.
that was another thing with kind of being out of Auckland. Like
Yeah.
we should have stayed a couple of days, but
Yeah.
we didn't want to like offload all of that admin onto other people
Yeah.
either.
Sure.
And,
Yeah,
and
probably
everything that
should've.
we'd hired from Auckland had to get back, otherwise you'd be charged
Yeah.
more. So
Yeah.
that was one of
Yeah.
the other funny things about
Yeah.
being out. But in the scheme of it, it was, I'd
Yeah.
do it again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And I think, I'm all for
Yeah.
weekend weddings, like
Yeah.
getting away.
So it was
People
a
love it.
Saturday or Friday?
It was a Saturday.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah.
And that was the great thing about that 3-day. Yes, so in the Aurora Sea Grotto, you get 3 days,
Yeah.
which allowed to facilitate all that setup and whatnot, which was great. We could have had it on the Friday.
Yeah.
So that took away a bit of pressure.
Yeah.
From pack down on that.
Because I shot a wedding there in, I think, a couple of weeks after. And from there, we could see your venue
Oh yeah.
Oh, yeah.
on the other
Oh,
side
yeah.
of
Yeah.
Yeah.
Coromandel. Yeah,
Oh, nice.
that was cool.
Oh, that's
We
good.
could, and the marquee was there. Like I could see the marquee, and that's why I thought it was just a permanent
Ah,
thing
okay.
that they had. So I didn't
Yeah.
realize that.
No,
Yeah.
yeah, I'm sure.
Yeah,
Might have
it was
just had
quite
a
far,
wedding.
but you
Yeah.
could see the white marquee there. So I just assumed that
Ah,
wasn't
Mm.
there.
Well, we had gone to check it like a couple of weeks beforehand,
Yeah, we went
maybe,
for a
and there
drive
was
down.
another marquee company
Yeah,
that had theirs up. It's amazing. They're all so different.
Yeah.
It's hard to visualize the space. And then luckily when we went, there was a marquee there so you could kind of see. But yeah,
Yeah.
lots of companies come and go, set it up.
Yeah.
take it
We had a
down.
bit of a panic in the planning. So when we booked it and we went down and saw it and say, a year out, it was this beautiful grass kind of paddock,
Yeah.
and booked it, paid for the deposit, and then about 6-7 months later, we saw some another wedding.
12 tables had gone and taken some photos, I think,
and
and
they
they
had
sent
a
it to me.
21st or someone had a party there,
Yeah.
and they'd laid all the white chip and created like this space which we didn't realize was going to affect the marquee and
okay.
where we wanted to place things because
Yeah.
you've seen it obviously, but it's up on a platform and then it kind of rolls off. It's man-made through a tractor and to create that space, and we thought, geez, how are we going to fit the marquee, the vendor,
it was more like
drinks caravan and the
the
food truck,
ceremony
Yeah.
space.
and
but-
then how are we going to have the ceremony on the
Yeah.
hero kind of thing, which is the deck.
So where it happened, was that the original plan?
Yeah, it was, and we were hoping that the marquee was going to be able to be put back a little bit, so we'd have kind of like the clear view.
Well, we were gonna. Our table layout was kind of different, and we had a bigger marquee.
Yeah.
What we ended up doing, again, like the venue and 12 tables were amazing. They let me chop and change my mind so many times. We shortened the marquee and orientated the tables the other way. And by doing that, we could cut off the marquee and have that space at the end for the ceremony where the dance floor was. But before that, like the marquee was kind of spanning it, and then there's no room.
Yeah, we would have had to.
Get like two
I know
rows
what you
of
mean
guests.
now. That would have covered the
there'd be no
where the guests were sitting.
And the whole appeal of that place is that beautiful outlook. Like we're like, we could kind of have the ceremony in front of the bush line. But we were really drawn to it for that ceremony spot. So it actually ended up working amazingly,
well. And we had
especially with that weather. We would have been.
There's so many people after the ceremony, like just hanging out there, just looking out, right?
Yeah, it was cool.
So many.
And our dance floor was where the guests were seated on top of the ceremony. So like, thank God for the weather, because it actually was, too bright and too sunny, but you can never say that for a wedding. I'd rather it be 50 degrees than raining. But that was great, because then it meant we could strip away that marquee, have it shorter, and it was warm enough at that time. And we had little, what do we call it, umbrellas out and stuff. So it worked out really well, pieced together.
The only thing I think I mean, if there's another wedding, they're exactly the same place. The only thing I would ask them to do is park the cars on the other side.
Yeah.
Because I had to Photoshop. So when the bride,
Did you?
I photoshopped the cars out while the bridesmaids are walking in. I mean, I left it for the other photos, but if you look at especially I think your sister walking in, her photo had like a whole
car.
I remember moving. Just before you arrived.
Apparently they had initially parked. It was all over. It was real haphazard, and someone had to like. It just got really long,
and then I think you guys said cut these ones off. But people should have turned in and driven. There's quite a lot of space. They could have driven further up,
further
and
away,
had a shorter, lots of rows
and
shorter,
just faced on the other side. So say if that's where the ceremony was, and this is where the marquee is. All the cars were here. I'm saying they should have been like facing that way.
On that other, The other thing was,
it would have been
our two cars were parked right in the middle. We never moved them.
It's like in all the photos.
And it's like we really want it. You don't put cars in it because it's a foreign object.
And there was also, when I arrived, nowhere else that was like the most hidden spot, kind of at the bottom of that hill, which wasn't even that hidden anyway. But it's those funny things.
But if there is any other wedding happening there, I'd be like, can we all park on the other side?
I should have probably I didn't think about it, but set up with the MC or my brother Brett, or task someone to be a little parking warden and usher it, but didn't think of it until it had happened.
You don't think, because it's such a big place, and as soon as you get out of the car, you're just looking that way. You're never looking the other way.
Especially as guests, right? But it's what guests see and what vendors see, and like photographers, your eye is like.
There was supposed to be another paddock that cars could go into, which was short of that gate.
That was never going to happen.
But it was like long.
It was so uneven.
It's an active farm, I suppose. So there's cows, and there's a donkey. But no, that was all closed off.
So with the podcast, I did a poll on Instagram and asked people what they would like to know when you're planning your wedding. What are the few things that you'd like to know? So there was some version of budgeting that always came up. So there were, I think, about 60 answers. Out of that, 40 plus were something or the other about budget. Like it could be the overall budget. It was like budget allocation, or like just something around the topic of budget. So because yours was like an ideal wedding, it was like really, really good. What were, if you can share some ideas about how did you budget for it? Like your own, like however you did it, because now talking to couples, I'm just realizing there's no one way of doing it. Everyone does it their own way. How did you guys go about that?
I think old mate over here had a really unrealistic concept of the budget for what we knew that we wanted.
Yeah.
And I guess we, again, decided what was really important to us and what we wouldn't compromise on, and kind of went for there. Like,
sorry to interrupt. What I mean is, so when you're saying what you really wanted, so did you know that from the get-go?
Yeah, I had things like a videography was a must-have for me, and I know that can be on, that's an additional thing.
Okay,
like
the
those
things you wanted, but not exactly. You didn't have like
like
I suppose
I know our money.
Items.
I wanted I wanted good food.
Yeah.
Good like photography and a good band.
Yeah.
And they were like I wouldn't compromise on those no matter what non-negotiables.
And for most, I suppose, people have to budget, and so sure, if you had an open book, it'd be easy to have the best of everything. Alice was really good in doing so. We found like a reasonable dress, whereas I suppose some brides might be like, it's the dress for me, know, and you had a really beautiful dress, but that's a ridiculous market, right? You can really pay a spectrum between $1,000 and $100,000. So. Or even cheaper. So we agreed, and I thought we've seen friends that have had wedding videography, and we catch up with them, and you sit down and they're watching it 10 years later or whatever, and it's a nice way to have like a synopsis of it, right? It's 5-6 minutes. Because I suppose back in the day, you used to sit down, the whole family, and like click through all the photos. It's kind of like when your parents went on overseas trips, and it's like click. So it isn't nice. We thought we'll want that to be able to encompass everything. We've got the photos that you can kind of deep dive on, but then the video is great to be able to share, especially in the modern world, right? So we agreed on that one, and then the food and the band came back to the feeling that we wanted to have, because I think we didn't want anyone to come away from our wedding being like, oh, it looked really nice, but they didn't really have a great time, or the silverware was cool, but so that we thought that would have left more a better experience, and the stories that people would tell after. I'm a South Auckland boy, Rob. I didn't realize I was marrying a shore girl. I thought a humble backyard probably, and Manurewa would have sufficed, but no, I was.
So it's just past Manurewa.
Shout out to Rewa. I thought probably the fact that we were DIYing it, I thought would have saved a lot, but the wedding industry doesn't let you make any savings.
That's what we found. The things I learned in regards to budget when it comes to weddings is photography, food, alcohol. That not alcohol so much, but there are things that cost what they cost.
Yeah,
and then all of your other costs are directly attributed to your guest numbers.
Yeah.
Okay,
and that's where we got stuck. It's like, you get to a point where the only thing that's going to save your budget is your guest numbers.
Oh.
Yeah.
And
I don't know.
That's what I thought.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, it does.
Because alcohol to your guest numbers, how many tables we needed, the size of our marquee.
Yeah, that did affect
guest numbers. Yeah. And where the big costs come in.
What about the venue?
The venue
that's
for us
usually
was
the biggest chunk of cost is
we were
venue,
fortunate because the Orua Sea Grotto was only $5,000 for that. But then you have to put the marquee.
But what comes with a venue is the venue often like a catering package, the tables, the chairs, the napkins, and that's all for a certain amount. But for us, yes, the venue, like the space was say $5, but then you add the 12 tables cost and all of that, and it kind of, and then food because that's separate, and alcohol and a bar and it works out to be the same.
Yeah. And also,
but again, attributed to your guest numbers. Like if you're feeding 60 people compared to 120, that's quite a lot less.
We felt we could dissipate that a bit because of we managed to BYO alcohol, which was a big one.
That was a big one.
Big drinkers and the family, not us. But
So how do you mean BYO?
So fortunately had a friend who had a connection through some premix companies that we
Yeah.
managed to get kind of at cost price.
Okay.
And then we purchased beer and wine through
Pack and Save.
But
who
you
were
guys
also
brought it.
yeah. So
Okay.
we, yeah, yeah.
And we
So
brought it.
BYO from the venue to you, not from you.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Originally,
Yeah,
yes.
I wish I had made my guess.
No,
BYO.
because I had.
These are the things that you canvas
Yeah.
though when
Yeah,
you're
you can,
planning.
yeah.
Like you talk about, like, is it
Yeah.
appropriate? Is it not? Like,
No,
because
because
that's what
we-
you do now,
Yeah,
right? But
we had a guest on
Yeah.
a couple on the podcast, and they had a BYO wedding.
Yeah.
So guests brought in
Oh, yeah,
drinks.
what they
and do you
wanted,
know
yeah.
what?
That's
Guess
why I wasn't sure. I was
Yeah.
Guess
like,
wouldn't care. Yeah.
we talked about that, and it's weddings is like its own thing, right? You're like, oh
Yeah.
no, that's not appropriate.
Yeah.
But why
Yeah,
not? I bet those
set
guests
their
didn't
own.
bat an eyelid.
Yeah.
no, but
You know?
also it's also the vibe of
Yeah.
people, and it's like I don't know. I don't drink, but I when I'm going to like a gathering or something, I always like take a bottle
Yeah.
of wine or
Yeah.
champagne or something.
Yeah.
But it's just I like a personal thing. Like
Yeah.
it, and depends on how when you're hanging out with the same group of friends,
Yeah.
how would you do it?
Yeah,
Mhm.
I
yeah,
think it comes down to like your own the vibe of the group
yeah,
Yeah.
as well.
yeah, yeah.
And also because there's so many weddings that are happening, you also kind of don't want to be too much of an odd one out.
Yeah.
Like-
Yeah.
That-
That does become
Yeah,
the way.
that's
We,
exactly it. And we had a
yeah.
lot of those discussions. But no, we provided the alcohol,
Okay.
but we purchased it from Pack and Save, who
Yeah.
were amazing.
Yeah,
They
they were
were
like, "Oh, we got this
so
coming on
good.
special, and
Yeah.
this," and so we bought, and it helped with buying it as we went, instead of being so many lump sum
Yeah,
Yeah.
things coming out, because that can be disheartening as the bills start coming.
Yeah.
And I suppose back to the budgeting, we started with. I think it was probably a bit unrealistic because, friends that had got married previous years or a while ago, there's inflation in
Yeah.
anything. And so what probably you could get 5 or 10 years ago is a lot north. And I probably thought,
Yeah.
I'd be able to get it for around that price. But it goes up. And it's such a hard balancing it. We talked about it a lot because it's a lot of money for a one day.
Yeah.
And then we'd change that with saying, well, look, I don't think we're going to look back later in life and be like, I wish we'd saved a little bit on our wedding. So that's a constant battle. I suppose it's important to try and touch base with each other and make sure that we're staying within, I suppose, what we think is appropriate and giving it enough to be what we want, but not too much to be, geez, that was an emotional, excessive decision, and look back on it and go, which I think, I suppose, as we look back, right, there's nothing really that we felt we
and
crazily overdid. Or
there were things
left
like
out.
before you get married and when you think you're planning a wedding that you think that you'll really care about having.
Yeah.
But then when it comes to that and you've got budget in mind, you're like, actually, it's not that important.
Yeah.
Like, for flowers, for example, I mean, flowers are so beautiful and everyone kind of wants the massive floral arrangements. Like we had beautiful long tables. You see those ones that are just filled with flowers.
Yeah.
But it's just not realistic for that size wedding. And I thought I'd really care about that. But there are so many other options and especially now like minimal is quite in
Less
for
is
styles.
more.
Yeah, and that is a good way to save.
Like
Like
little
there was,
jars and little boho kind of thing, and I think some other people
Yeah, got them all
complimented on
from,
that.
like,
Also, the
Pop shops
champagne
and
tower
stuff.
that you did,
Oh,
it
yeah.
was like not. I don't. Now that you're saying it, so this is just when I go to weddings and when I used to see that, I would be like, and if the venue is doing it, I'd be like, okay, that's like $500 worth of champagne, right?
Yeah.
But since you bought the champagne and everything, it wouldn't have cost you more.
No,
Yeah.
But the photos look amazing, and
Yeah.
it actually
It
looks
was
like a
such
really
a
expensive
fun
thing to
moment.
do.
It's funny, it was Prosecco, wasn't it? It was about,
Don't give our secrets.
it was about
No,
$14
No,
a
they were
bottle,
expensive.
4 or 5 bottles. Yeah.
It was my.
I almost knocked it over as well. Yeah,
Yeah, you can see that through the photos.
Yeah.
But we had that instead of a cake as well. Like we
Yeah.
made that decision, so we didn't have a
yes.
cake. So that
That's
was
right.
that moment was kind of like our cake cutting moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Again, unpopular opinion, but I just didn't feel like we needed a cake
Yeah.
because we knew we were doing other dessert, and with like that many people, I was never going to pay hundreds and hundreds for like a big tiered cake. It just
It's funny because
so that moment kind of became that,
it's
and
cool to
that was a
keep
bit of a
and
saving.
probably for an older generation too, but I suppose it's like, I don't know, maybe I'm mostly drunk by the time the cake comes out. You don't really appreciate it,
Yeah.
right? And all the effort that's gone into it and how beautiful it
Yeah.
is. So it's probably why we're like, I think it'll be something later in the night that people don't
Also,
really enjoy.
what I'm thinking is, like a cake cutting at that moment just goes, like cutting the cake doesn't take more than like I'd say 15 seconds.
Yeah.
But that whole champagne thing, and then you had your bridal party in
Yeah.
the world as well.
Yeah.
So that took a good 2 minutes at least,
Yeah.
if not more. I think it was more, but at least 2 minutes.
People
But what
kinda
I'm
get
saying
up
is
for
15
it.
seconds versus 2 minutes. So
Yeah.
it's like a
And
lot-
everyone
and
was
everyone
up
was up
and
there
clapping.
enjoying
It was a real
Everyone's
moment.
cheering,
Yeah,
on
it was
top
a
of the
real
skillet.
moment. Like, thinking back, it was like, that was one part of the wedding. I was like, whoa, this is happening quick. But it was
Yeah.
so fun.
It's funny,
Like,
yeah.
I just remember it being
And
really, really
also
fun.
leading to it was really good. It
Yeah.
wasn't like just starting, but
Yeah.
just that whole choreographed dance before that
which
was
but,
really
like we came up, we were like, "Oh, we'll do this," and it was cool. While we were doing our photos, the way the couplings, I suppose, were coming up with their own dance. We were trying to hide. That's probably the thing we were most nervous about. We'd created something orchestrated, and you're like, oh, now you got to execute. You know, it's not very natural, but now that obviously your guests get behind you, and that was cool. It was
so
good.
everything fell into place so well. Like imagine the marquee was longer and there was no dance floor. Then where would you do that part before getting into? Because you did that on the dance floor, came in and then did the champagne thing.
There was
If
lots of
it
room,
wasn't there, then you'd have to get inside the marquee, do that. So it wouldn't have been so impactful.
We were very, as much as we'd thought about everything, we were quite lucky some things came together. And then a friend of ours, Sam, who is a wedding
she
planner,
was amazing.
She was great. And I think...
And her husband was the partner?
Amazing. Jared.
Yeah, Jared was there. They were a great team. And I think initially when we had a convo, when we looked at things as whether we needed to have them or not, I thought we were at a time in our budget where I was like, I didn't want to have a wedding plan. I'd love to have a wedding planner, but I was like, we're kind of DIYing it ourselves, and I couldn't really see the value. But we knew her personally, and then Alice works with her, and after catching up with them and them on the day was just amazing. Like the stuff like that, the placement of that, the music, the lead and stuff,
you cannot put a value on that, honestly.
Now
what I
the
know,
speakers and
the umbrellas that she set
right.
up, the champagne tower,
massive shift from there. That was
I actually hate to think if we didn't have them.
Probably the best value for money, I think, for the day.
You only know that now looking back, which is all the things you can kind of appreciate.
Yeah. And Alice was always like, oh, there's heaps to be done. I'm always like,
no, we can do it. People will do it.
So you say a coordinator is like the best value, one of the best value for
especially
money.
I suppose if you're considering piecing it together or piecing certain aspects. If it's full, package, I don't know, maybe
often they come with
things would,
someone.
But just
like a venue would already have
they usually have someone.
But and I'm sure I think it would still be beneficial there. And it was really beneficial to us. Timings and all sorts helped out our MC and
they brought down our chiller trailer. Like they were above and beyond. They were incredible.
They actually I think they love being a part of it.
I thought they were just
Jared was the last one on our dance floor.
And I just thought like they were friends. I didn't even realize like after when I was talking to them, that's when I realized, oh, you're actually coordinators. But I thought they were just friends, and that says a lot. Because you are working, but then you're like, they've mentioned a couple of times, I'd love to. Sometimes they need help, and they're bringing people on as their business grows. I was like, geez, I'd come and help out behind the bar or moving stuff around. Weddings are such great fun, that was key. Yeah. So in total, how much did you end up spending on the wedding?
We were about 60-ish, I think.
I reckon we were between 60 and 70.
We stopped
You stopped counting, you stopped looking. But I reckon we were close to 70.
70? Yeah. And that includes the next day as well? Like all of it?
Yeah. A lot... Not much really went into that next day. We had a lot of leftover stuff.
So I suppose people listening.
Oh, true, because you would have had alcohol.
The two accommodation. Yeah, because there was accommodation for Rhys and the groomsmen, and then me and my family. Which
is that where you guys stayed?
We went back and stayed where Rhys stayed.
So that included pretty much everything. Yeah. And initially we started with about 40, I think. Some friends had been around that ballpark about a year or two prior. But then, then there's COVID and that. And it'll be interesting to see as it goes. Like I tell people who are getting, I always joke with mates that are getting engaged to get married as quick as you can because it's only going to get more expensive.
Like honestly.
You can say that now though, but I mean, so many people say that to you, like, just elope. Like it's so much. And you're like, but you've had your day.
Yeah.
Like you can
Yeah.
say, you know,
we were
and then we would say
fortunate.
just a lot. No.
We
But-
yeah.
Yeah.
We purchased a house a couple of years ago, so we
Yeah.
were fortunate in that.
I think that would have probably changed things a little
Yeah.
bit if we
So we
didn't have a house.
we
and-
felt like that was
Yeah.
if you were taking money away from the potential to get a
Yeah.
home, then that would be really tough. And
True.
it was disheartening as it went up, right? Like we thought, geez, 40 became 45 and
Almost
50.
double.
Yeah, and we're like,
Yeah.
wow, really? But there was nothing that we didn't feel we were doing anything crazy.
Yeah.
It just
Yeah.
happened to be
That is
Yeah.
what it is.
the way that it
Yeah.
was.
At least you gave it a thought. It wasn't like a
Yeah.
decision like you have to have it and
Yeah.
this is you're doing just cause.
Yeah.
You know? It
Yeah.
wasn't like that. You just
Yeah. And we were fortunate to get both families to help out, which helped offset it,
Oh,
which,
they're
which
amazing.
was great.
Yeah, very, very grateful.
Hopefully we can pay that forward one day. But yeah.
But
and
like post COVID, things have gone really expensive.
everything,
As well. Like
everything. Is
I did
food
your
for-
friend's wedding before COVID,
Mm,
right?
yeah.
And like at that time, I could do weddings for about 5,500 or
Mm.
6,000. But then now my cost is coming to over $3,000.
Yeah.
Wow.
Just like the
Just
hiring
cost.
people and editing and those kind of costs.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then I'm like, if I do it, then I'm only left with like $2,000. And then by the time you pay taxes and stuff,
Oh,
you're
I
like,
know,
it's
why
yeah.
did I
so
do
much
the
of a thing.
wedding?
Yeah.
It's the same
Yeah.
for like everything, right? You
Go
got
back to your job.
food. Yeah. I mean,
No.
food. We had a food truck who were great, a great cost per head. But now you look at even just sourcing the
Yeah.
food and then gas prices to get there, or logistics. Everything's gonna.
Yeah.
It's gonna struggle. So budgeting is important, and
Yeah.
finding a balance. I suppose it's probably more better to look to it with future savings and getting to where you think it's going to be than to try and go backwards or into any credit or anything like that. I
Yeah.
suppose we've kind of been good savers and knew at some point it'd be around the corner, so
Yeah.
had a fund kind of ready to go.
But what were some of the bigger expenses that you did and you didn't mind doing it? Say, like, I don't know, like how you had an extra dress as well, which we almost think we almost did not
changed
capture.
a few. Yeah.
Um,
She went.
But
That
like,
actually wasn't. Yeah, I mean, Rhys was
not
like,
just that dress, but like overall, like your suits and dresses and
Yeah.
what were some of the bigger?
Actually, when you said you wanted to get a sing dress, I almost vetoed it. I was like, nah, we're not spending more. But it was just like a
It was
white,
actually quite a cheap
from like a normal store, and it worked really well, right? So
we also undernard about what we cover for bridesmaids and groomsmen
Yeah.
and that kind of
Yeah,
stuff as
yeah.
well. So we pretty much did cover everything, I think, for
yeah,
both.
we wanted to, didn't we? Because I
Yeah.
thought, and it's I wouldn't expect it in return. It was something that we didn't get them like gifts, and they were traveling and
Yeah, yes.
So that was kind of a big thing, they were mostly footed their own cost or chipped in, which helped offset. 'Cause we had like nice 3 or 4 bedroom batchy places. So we ended up reciprocating with that.
Yeah.
But that can be a hard one, especially if you're budgeting. But I would say to anyone you wouldn't feel the pressure, because all of ours were like, oh no, you don't have to, and I wouldn't imagine anyone would mind buying their suit or dress if they're good mate.
Yeah.
But they were.
Because how much was your actual dress?
It was 4.5
Oh,
by the time it came to, which is actually more than I thought.
Yeah.
Alterations.
But everyone
and
has that. Yeah,
training.
you're like, this
Yeah.
is
I
the
think that's
one,
like-
and you're like, yeah, and I actually, that's probably like a middle of the range one. You
Yeah.
can definitely get a lot more. I was very open to secondhand dresses as well. If
Yeah.
I'd found the right dress, and it was a pre-loved dress,
It was
I
really
would have.
good.
It would have been
Yeah.
fine.
There was a dress before it around the 2 mark or something that you really liked, and then unfortunately for me, tried on this one. But yeah, I think there was some around there too, right? The
Yeah,
dress
there's
before
such a spectrum, and plus my dress was really plain. So I was looking at it,
but
being
like I cannot imagine you in any other dress.
"Oh,
Just because I see so many different
Yeah.
types of dresses,
Yeah.
right? Now I cannot imagine you like in a puffy dress or like
yeah,
a more of a straight one. It was just so good and
Mm.
perfect
Thank
and
you.
went with everything
Yeah.
else of the wedding.
yeah,
Yeah.
So like it, like some if you were wearing, say, as
Yeah.
an example, like a colored jacket or
Yeah.
something, so it wouldn't go with
Yeah.
everything else of the
Yeah.
wedding. So
Mm.
it was just perfect for.
It was a funny mix for our wedding, because we were like, black suit and what would you call it? Not high end, but it was black tie-ish.
We
but
liked
then we were at
the
a beach.
classic.
So
We liked the classic look of the black and white
balance, because I was going to.
yeah, we were
going to
beach.
go shorts and sandy tones.
Oh, were you?
Yeah, well, that kind of
No, it
thing.
wasn't.
Hey, remember it was Alice's
Yeah.
wedding
This is,
featuring.
do you want me to show you the sign?
Yeah, that was good.
I will put it up
The
on
sign,
the
that was
podcast.
cool,
That is
yeah.
the highlight of the wedding.
Yeah, it was
I've never
cool.
seen a wedding sign like that.
Yeah, that's another.
You got to take the credit where,
Cool,
where it's deserved.
My friends from school started a company called Blink Boys Limited, or Blink Limited now, and that was massive. So it's, one of them, Andrew, a friend of mine, was there, and that was cool. And if anyone who is piecing a wedding together, you really can reach out to friends in that space. I was fortunate that he came and he put. We had our names, Rhys and Alice, on our rear wall. We did that install in the morning, the signage and the menus and stuff. So, and that was effectively his gift to us. So that was amazing.
That was cool.
Yeah,
it was done really well as well.
Yeah, it was cool. And we'd pieced that together from seeing other weddings or similar. We'd seen the feature thing. We stole that from someone, but I think the Alice's wedding featuring Rhys. I felt like we might have seen or something similar, and then we're like, because we were a bit nervous when we did it. Cause
I was scared that Rhys's mum would be like,
this is my son's
what about
wedding.
my boy?
Yeah,
But
no, it was funny.
But no, then anyone that knows us, like, that's quite classic of me,
Yeah.
like the
I only
princess.
noticed that right at the end of the
Yeah.
night when I took the
The
photo
photos.
and I read it.
Photos.
Because
Yeah.
you take the this is just me. Like I would take a photo and I wouldn't actually see, and because once I get into details, I kind of get carried away.
Yeah.
So same thing. Like I don't know whether I should say this or no, but at the wedding, I'm not listening. I'm hearing
Yeah.
the vows and
Yeah.
everything that has been said, but I'm not listening to it.
Yeah.
So
No, that makes sense.
if I start processing it and then I start getting
Yeah.
emotional and I was
Yeah.
like, oh,
Yeah,
and then I
yeah.
forget
Oh,
taking
sure.
photos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, that makes
Yeah.
total sense.
But then because I'm recording everything, I'm like, okay, is that camera? And because at your wedding, because of the heat that was coming from the top and from the
It was
bottom
hot.
as well, because I was freshly painted.
Yes.
Bouncing
Blinding everyone.
Yeah, the main camera right in the middle that got overheated and stopped.
Did it?
Yeah.
I did it.
So
Wow.
I was like, then
Oh,
I saw
must
it
be
straight
so
away, but I had 3 cameras going, 2 from the side and 1 from the front.
Yep.
So that one was right at the bottom, very close to the
yes.
floor. That got
Yeah.
overheated
Wow.
and stopped.
Wow.
So I
Holy
was half
moly.
of the ceremony. I was holding a camera and just like being a tripod there.
See, amazing what you
Yeah,
don't
no.
know and what you don't notice
No,
and
yeah.
what goes on
Nervous.
behind the scenes.
Yeah.
That's crazy. Gosh, it must have been
But
so
then
hot.
when we're doing the edits, that's when I'm listening
Of
to
course.
like the vows and
Yeah.
everything. And
That's quite cool. It's not to do with budgeting, but it was off the back of the vendors that we had, like Nick from Insphire, my brother's friend's company had the helped out with the tableware and things like that. So we kind of pieced together. And then the last one was Fay, Alice's family friend. She was our celebrant, and not a celebrant, but she's
Yeah,
Oh,
just
that's-
starting out on like that journey. And so
Well, we, again, when it came to choosing, it is tied in with budget because celebrants can be quite a big cost.
Yeah.
And I was always, it felt funny for me to have someone that you didn't know. Like celebrants, they're amazing. They do such a beautiful job and they're very professional, and you meet with them and they spend time. But it just, something didn't quite click if they didn't know us.
Yeah.
And then we kind of ummed and ahed with a few people. You had a friend who kind of did it as a joke for someone else.
Yeah.
And then we had family who could have done it, but like quite religious, and we obviously weren't getting married in a church, and we were really umming and ahhing about that. And then our family friend, she's been a friend of my side for a very long time. Kind of went to school with her kids, and she's a principal at the school that I went to, deputy, and she just came to my mind. And we had them over for dinner and we did like a little proposal thing, but she, like, not a celebrant,
Yeah.
not in that area
But she
at
did
all.
really, really
She
well.
killed
She
it.
did
Yeah, it was
amazing.
awesome.
She did
And we
so
asked her,
good.
and she was like, "Oh my gosh!"
Yeah.
And she was just the perfect
She's-
person.
And
Yeah.
you know the best thing,
That's a-
because why I love her is because she moved
Yeah.
during the first kiss.
She'd been briefed for the day before.
Yeah.
She'd been briefed.
That's always a
and
good
then-
thing to
That's
tell.
the
Yeah,
only
it's
thing
a
that
good-
happens
Everyone.
when people are not non. I mean, even with celebrants, it happens. But usually, I would go and have a chat. But
Yeah.
when it's like the priest or like family members or friends who are not celebrants, they would forget because it's like a one-off thing for
Yeah.
them. So they're also
Yeah.
putting up the show, right?
There's
like
a lot of pressure.
Yeah,
Man,
it's a lot of
I
pressure.
knew what we
and
were
then-
asking of her, and I was
photo,
like,
and
face just in the back. Yeah, it's hard
and
to.
this photographer come in and asking them to do like a completely different thing, which is not in the script. They're like,
Yeah,
okay, what do I do now?
yeah. Almost need to write
yeah,
it in
and then
there.
you don't want that moment to be super staged. You're like, go back and
Yeah.
and
Yeah,
Yeah,
but also
you can't.
what I've started doing is what I asked them to do is just after it's you sign the papers,
Mm.
just do the entire thing from the
on the
side.
side.
yeah.
Instead of
Yeah.
going there and then
Yeah.
moving, it's just easier if you just don't stand there because
Yep.
it's literally just like a 2 minute
Yeah, it's
thing
like
after that.
the
it's-
wrap up.
I've seen
Yeah.
people now doing it from the aisle as well. So
Yeah.
looking at and then the wedding party facing
Yeah.
the audience, which was quite interesting. But
I saw
yeah.
one wedding which was really good, and I'm trying to get some couple to do it
Mhm.
where they're standing right in the middle. It would be a nightmare for me to shoot.
Yeah.
But and then people are actually almost in a circle. So there's
yeah.
two circles,
Yeah.
and they're standing in the middle, and the celebrant is on the side.
You
as
need like a
well.
360 camera or whatever.
That would-
I tagged you
everyone
in the
can
photo
see.
right today. That's a 360.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
that
I
that
like-
would be cool.
What style I liked was the row, where you have like two rows of people
Yeah.
lengthways
Yeah.
and the wedding kind of in
Yeah.
the middle or a crossroads.
Yeah.
That would be quite cool.
That recently happened in Queenstown.
Oh, yeah.
So
Oh,
they and the floor was mirror.
Oh, nice.
So it
Wow.
was and flowers next to it, and then people sitting in two rows.
I
That
showed
was,
you the one in the paddock,
Oh,
but
yeah,
the
it's like-
floral arrangement would have been
Oh, I feel like it
huge,
was like
that's
50
the only thing
meters
that's stopping-
long,
Yeah, you got
Yeah.
long.
But
Well,
beautiful. I love seeing all those new
Yeah,
styles and ways, and
Yeah,
like
it's cool.
Yeah.
it's traditional and it's sticking to like wedding tradition, but
own
like
flair.
own flair.
I think I think also what's happening is New Zealand wedding industry is quite different as well.
Mm.
So I see all these different things happening. Like flowers is a big thing
Mm.
in like European weddings
Yeah.
and weddings happening in Europe and even US.
Mm.
So you see the flower arrangements and all of that. That's like a massive thing.
Massive.
Yeah.
So say for example, same marquee as yours can be done. Can be redone in a completely different way,
Yeah.
just by flower arrangements and like draping and
Yeah.
those kind of things.
Yeah.
So I think that's it does happen here, but
Mm.
it's just I think the budget just goes
Yeah.
like way.
I must
Yeah.
say.
When you're looking
yeah.
at doing
You're right.
Yeah.
And you could change. One thing we looked at was tables. It was logistical because we had 118, I think it was there, the long tables. But we thought about different styles, lean-tos, bar lean-tos, making it a
Yeah.
social setting, or maybe not even a sit-down meal because we had street food.
Yeah.
But it came down to, I think, numbers and size to get bums on seats. And I suppose it was good, right? Because speeches are not long, but you want to have a seat and probably a place to go.
Yeah. So you had a food truck,
Yeah.
and how much did you spend on like just a ballpark?
That
figure
was 10 grand, I think,
Yeah.
for all the food,
all the
including
food,
dessert.
So that was
including
a
dessert,
big
including-
cheese board, like the fruit and cheese board platter,
grazing table.
Yeah.
grazing table. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then three main options, which you got one of each, which is quite
Yeah.
cool. Some people went up and they're like, oh, we'll have that one. And they're like, no, you get one
You
of
get all
each.
of
And they're like,
them.
wow,
They're
that's
like-
quite a lot of food for a wedding. Because
Oh, you
sometimes
get one of each.
Yeah,
Yeah, one
they
of
cater
each.
for one of each thing, and then
Yeah.
they were awesome because any dietary requirements, they just make that thing
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
same thing.
and we had
Yeah.
about 10 things
Catered
to
to that
choose from. So
person.
we chose like sliders, fish and chips, and pad thai or
Yeah.
something.
Yeah, classic
Um,
things. But
They were actually up.
and then they did dessert.
Up here, we're
Ice
at
cream.
Rome Food Garden, and they were at Cumu Beer Spot, and we went out there for lunch, and
Yeah.
they put some options on for us. They smashed it out. It was great.
Cool.
And then ice cream, wasn't it?
Yeah,
Duck Island
yeah.
ice cream.
Yeah.
And then obviously their time in the caravan and
Yeah.
everything. So
Yeah.
well, I thought that was
I
was
think
really
what was
reasonable.
it per head? Like 70. So
I
it was
don't.
like
I can't
15
quite
for
remember.
grazing, maybe like 25 for dinner, and like $8 for ice cream. So it was good per head.
Yeah.
cost.
Also, that was per head as well.
Yeah.
That was,
Kind of.
that's how they
An
charge.
initial
Yeah.
thing
Okay.
per head, yeah.
Yeah.
So it actually became more affordable the more that you had.
Yeah. And then
Yeah.
you had the bar staff.
Yeah.
The cat.
Yeah, they
Karen
were
Bar?
quite Coromandel Caravan
yeah.
Bar. Yeah.
I
So
think
we
those
provided.
ladies were there at that other wedding
yeah.
as
were
well.
they?
So
Yeah.
they showed me
See,
that
they were a
that's where
local vendor.
Yeah.
They were our only local vendor apart
Yeah.
from the venue. Obviously, they were the only ones that were from down there.
Yeah.
Initially, that was one I was hoping to get away with, not having. We were going to have staff, but the need to chill the drinks at a farm paddock, and then but that was good. And the chiller trailer meant that they could be serving drinks and restocking.
They did so many laps back and forth. They had
and
the
the
little
chiller trailer was
wheelbarrow.
quite far away. That were great.
They were amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then so that would have been a cost.
It was
Yep,
about
that was like 1,500.
1,500.
And how
And
much?
that's just for that's for their 2 staff.
Yeah.
And the caravan and some glassware.
Yeah.
I think they did
true,
wine
glassware.
glass. Yeah, we had different glassware for the tables.
That was from Nick.
Was that provided by 12?
We hired that through Inspire,
Yeah,
who is a friend of ours.
Yeah.
So you took.
We
That was
took-
your job to take it. There
We
and then-
took
Yep.
Okay.
And we stacked them
took
down on the bus.
And that was actually
plates and
glassware.
glassware
Yeah.
and the champagne tower
Yeah.
glasses.
Yeah, napkins
Okay.
and that. Yeah.
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 Cool.
Yeah, it was great. Packaged those all up. That was good.
Nice.
Yeah.
But that was also quite reasonable. I
Yeah.
thought.
And do you know how much approximately you spent on the drinks?
That's a good
I think that was
point.
about 4,000, 4 or 5.
Yeah.
And
We
you
had
had enough drinks.
had-
Yeah, we
for-
took some back, and
Yeah.
that was the other amazing thing
Yeah.
about Pack and Save. They took it all back for store credit. So
Oh.
anything we didn't use, which
Yeah.
was maybe there were like 10 boxes of beers
Yeah.
and a lot of wine.
A lot of
Yeah.
white
A
wine.
lot of wine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of the white wine.
No one
I think
drinks
2
white wine
bottles of white
anymore.
wine got
Yeah.
drunk. Bought it all back from us.
Yeah. Which
Wow.
was great.
Yeah.
And we just got
I think we got
save vouchers.
just over $1,000
Yeah.
back for
Because
that.
you said you took some drinks on the next day to the thing
Yeah,
as well,
yeah.
right?
Yeah.
And
And
Wow,
so
then
you
the
had-
that's
days
actually
following.
really good.
Yeah, it was good.
I was
And
so impressed with
we
that.
had what was good about DIYing is we could pick and choose what we had. So we had a Heineken, Corona for beers.
Yeah.
We had some friend of ours recommended like Esk Valley or whatever, right? So we
Oh,
bought
yeah.
red, rosé, and white,
Yeah.
and then we had Pals and some non-alcoholic. So Pals were demoed, weren't they?
Yeah.
Which is
Hot
Kiwi.
summer's day,
So if you
yeah.
do get the opportunity, I would go with what your friends
Yeah,
drink,
like
long
what's-
whites or
yeah.
Pals, because
Yeah.
I suppose sometimes you go to a wedding and you can only have beer, and maybe not everyone drinks beer or white wine, but that was cool to be able to throw in some alternatives, and then any leftovers are still sitting behind our
Yeah.
couch.
I think
So,
there's like 6 bottles of Prosecco
yeah,
Yeah.
So the Pals are slowly
that
going.
lived behind our couch for so long.
Yeah,
Cool. Thank you for sharing all that.
that's all right.
It was a lot of info and a lot of great info
Yeah.
actually for someone who wants to have their wedding outside
Yeah.
outside the city and stuff.
That was the big thing. We just like getting closer. Like it felt really risky. Like we did not have an indoor option. We
Yeah.
were really putting
Yeah.
a lot of faith in good weather. We
Yeah.
knew that venue. It really needs the beautiful weather
Yeah.
that we were so lucky to get. But there came a point where we just had to make a call on it. And
Yeah.
like you said earlier, like we're a little bit risk adverse, but that risk really paid off.
Yeah.
And if you have that kind of dream, that idea of doing an outdoor wedding, just do it,
Yeah.
honestly, because
The week-
you'll be rewarded for
the week
those
bef-
decisions.
Yeah.
The week before was a massive storm,
Yeah.
and the week after was huge floods and a road slip on the road that,
Yeah.
and so
The road into
couldn't have
Coromandel.
been more fortunate
Yeah.
with the weekend that we had.
But I think I've got most compliments on your wedding, not the photos, but like just the way the wedding looked.
that's
I
good.
have had so many
Oh,
people,
nice.
people who know you and
Yeah.
people who don't know you as well. They're like that Coromandel wedding that you did that looks so
Oh, that's
good.
cool.
Oh,
So,
that's so nice.
yeah, all credit to you guys because you put it all together.
Oh, honestly, credit to all of our vendors. Like I
Yeah,
say,
yeah.
you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
Your first time planning a wedding, and it's so daunting. But honestly, you just put your faith in your vendors because they do know what they're doing,
Yeah,
Yeah,
But-
and
yeah.
it's such a team effort.
yeah,
But also, I was just saying, like, it's you, even you letting us do what we want to do is that's a massive thing. Not everyone does it.
Yeah.
Everyone wants to have it in a certain way. Like, say, as an example, I can only talk about photos. So if you just tell me I want photos like this, I can make it happen. But then just to make you happy. So you will be super happy with it, but it may or may not be my own vision of it.
Yeah.
And of course, like, I can only do so much, and there will be some of mine as well. But then you, from your end, it was just like, just do what you know best. And
just you tell us.
And even that engagement session that we did pre-wedding, that was really cool.
That was
as well.
cool. Yeah,
you were quite nervous about that.
Yes,
like,
we had to
just
put yourself out there. I suppose not many guys. Yeah.
But we hadn't met before that,
true.
so even like when I go into an engagement session, I go with a blank slate. I have no idea what's happening at all.
Yeah.
I mean, we do talk about what you're gonna wear and stuff like that, but I don't know exactly what's gonna go.
True.
But
it was really cool. I never had photos done or anything. I was like, it's weird. Yeah, but it was cool.
Yeah.
It was really good. Yeah.
I just went through them yesterday
Yeah.
because we updated the website and I was changing some things on it, and I typed your name and then the engagement one came up as well.
Yeah.
And I was like, I was just looking through it.
Blown
It's
away
so
by
cool.
those.
Yeah, it was cool. Good spot, Mirabai as well, and tunes. Yeah.
You can't, like, honestly, you guys have been so lucky, even with that one.
Yes, that's right. Yeah. I remember there was.
Because I shot at Mirabai like 1,000 times, and it's never the same. But then that day was really good.
Yeah,
Like,
it was
the
quite
sunset
warm and
and
stuff as well. Like that was, and not too many people. Oh man, we have been so lucky. Just looking back.
Yeah. So
lucky.
I think we've covered a bunch of things. And was there anything else you wanted to discuss, like?
One thing I suppose we touched on was was guest numbers. It's really hard, and I think it's probably going to be one of the first problems that you face. You know, you look talking about vendors and finding this and that, but then part of the DIY aspect was trying to get as many as we could. And you know, when we sat down. With like a bottle of red wine, and we got out like
we thought it would be like a really
cool,
fun
let's
process.
start writing it out. And we started thinking about, you know, family and friends and different circles, rugby and school and this and that, and then it kind of gets all blurred, and then start again, and then eventually we got to a point where one thing that may help people was we wrote out everyone that we would love to have if money or logistics wasn't an issue, and that was about 180.
Yeah,
and it was massive, and then it's a horrible process of like finding the line where you can afford or you think it fits right, and then who's north of that line. It's really hard. It's really hard and really ruthless. I mean, I think it's good if you can be understanding of other people's weddings you have or haven't been invited to. I think being married definitely helps you with being like understanding, because we had people who came without partners. We had no kids at our wedding, which was hard. We had my nieces and nephew were in our bridal party, but so hard, you know. And some friends had really young kids, but it was either, you know, 1 or like 12, and then that's bums on seats, and or partners you haven't met, or, you know, they may be involved in your life moving forward, and that's such a hard, difficult decision. But really, we got to a point where we were caring about what everyone else thought, and we thought, look, we just got to, people will be understanding if they're, you know, they love us and they're in our lives. And eventually got them. We've spoken to some friends that have organised weddings lately, and they've encompassed the same problem.
It seems to be a common one, and it just comes with the territory, really. With that, you have to make those hard calls, but people do understand, and
you got to honour the past, and look to the future who's going to be in your life, and that can be really difficult, I'd say. I suppose back earlier days, it used to be with maybe smaller lives and more tight-knit extended families, but we found it hard with friends and friends groups that was a difficult mix to balance. So
there were a couple of things that really helped us. One was like, who really champions your life? Like, who would be so stoked to be there and be part of the party? Because I think you can definitely look at people in your lives and be like, they'd be keen for the party. It probably doesn't matter that it's us getting married, or, you know, but then there are like people who would be stoked for us.
Yeah.
And the second thing, actually Jacob and Gabby said this to us, like getting married and saying your vows is one of the most intimate things you'll kind of do. Like who are you comfortable doing that in front of?
Yeah.
And it was quite a turning point. That was when we were like,
look out
with our line, and that finally was when it came together. It kind of,
you visualize it, eh? So
like who do you want to look out and be like, yeah,
who's
I'm
looking back at you and you want to share in that moment with, and that was quite
that
big.
Was really helpful.
Yeah.
We were really struggling. Like there was some. It becomes a bit
of overwhelming, sad process when you're supposed to be excited about who gets to be there instead of who doesn't.
Yeah, and that's another good way to look at it.
And that's tough. But that was good visualization, and that it helped it. And then you got to have, I think you get towards the back end of the process, and it's been a lot of them, and then you just go, I just don't care anymore because I'm over trying to be nice or worry about it. It's like, no, it's here, it's this time, it's that place, you're invited. Let us know.
Something on the back of the same thing is RSVP. So I didn't know about this, but recently on the podcast a couple said that RSVP was a big issue for them. Like they couldn't get people to tell them, or people just wouldn't reply, or people said they're coming and then changing their mind and stuff like that. Did you have much with that?
We had the out of town element, so people had to either commit or not, and they had to commit by probably a bit earlier than they would have for other weddings, and if they were coming they had to find accommodation. So we had a website which we updated a lot, and all of our information was fed out through there, all the links and how to RSVP. So that was actually quite seamless. There were a few people we kind of had to chase up, but only like a few, and most people were. And
they had logistics or things that they kind of understand.
But a lot, pretty much, when the invitation went out, they were on to booking things. I was really impressed.
Pretty much told them, got to. Alice did an amazing job. She bought a website domain, coded it, doesn't have any coding background.
I heard that during the speech.
It was a stressful time. You're doing it all, Well, because you're spending all your time learning this. But
you could have bought like those websites that. I don't know.
It was more like writing the rules so that things would, and I could click links. I don't know. It wasn't as complicated.
We felt it was necessary because of the out of town, because it was.
There was so much information to pump out.
You need to stay here, and we wanted to make it as easy as for people as we could.
But I think that was an easy way of RSVPing as well. So we were actually quite lucky. We had a couple of people that where we had invited one and not their partner RSVP, so that they were both coming. And we had to go back and be like,
it's tough. It's just an assumption.
So you had to have
because it was like through a portal. because it was kind of like just through like an email, or like fill in the
so
RSVP
all the communication
form.
was through the website as well.
Pretty much. So we sent physical invitations, and then on the back of the invitations we had a QR code, which we thought people would be super used to. So you scan that, and that linked to our website, and we had obviously like our date and time. Then we had just different segments like travel and accommodation, our attire, like dress kind of thing. And then we had an RSVP form which included people's dietary requirements. But we also made like a wedding email address, so which is where the RSVP went back to, and then just any questions. And every time I updated that, because leading up to the wedding with all the weather events and forecasts, we had to send out quite a lot of comms around the best routes and what slips and closures. I would just, the RSVP recorded people's emails. I'd just send a bulk email, say that the site's been updated, here's the link to it, and they could go on. It also linked through to all the accommodation options. It was really handy. It was really, really good. And it kept track of all those RSVPs in like a Google Doc and all the dietary requirements.
It was interesting. We disagreed on the RSVP time frame. I don't know. Maybe I was a bit naive, but I was like, I don't see what's so difficult. You get sent the invite, you make a decision.
yes or
I was
no.
like, let's bring this forward like 2 months, because you're waiting, for those RSVPs, and it was quite a window.
Rhys, reckon you could turn it around in 2 weeks, like give people 2 weeks to get
Easy,
back?
easy.
I was like,
Make a
oh,
decision.
honey. No.
So how long did you
Well,
if
we
you
had the
remember, how long did you
accommodation
do?
thing.
3
I think,
months, was it 4?
yeah, maybe
3 or 4 months.
yeah.
I was like,
So you said 2 weeks.
something like that. Yeah,
Yeah.
2 to 4
This
weeks.
guy.
Well, because I was like, hey, it's
We gotta know.
yeah. I was like, yeah.
But like what again, vendors so
Yeah.
amazing. Like they, for confirming food and numbers and stuff.
Yeah.
That's kind of like 4 weeks out.
Yeah.
You
Yeah,
have more
that's what
time
it
than you
was.
think. Like once those initial things are booked, you do have time. The accommodation was a big one. Like we were on people quite a lot. Like,
Yeah.
have you booked? Have you booked? Have you booked? Of course, there were some that turned up and hadn't.
Yeah.
People make it work.
Yeah.
It's amazing.
Yeah.
And the RSVP stuff, because you probably, like us, we had people that we really wanted to invite but couldn't.
That was the
Yeah.
other thing.
So
is,
we had a bit of a list, like a list there that we'd
A
love to
backup.
try and get in, and we
and we
managed
still
to get
had to give them enough notice
some, yeah, I think we managed to
if
get
they
some off that
cancelled
list, though.
for accommodation.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And they were really understanding. Like I think might have been in a position before where it's been like, hey, would you like to come? You're like, yep, cool. So it's like you get 2 types of people, right? Oh, I wasn't invited or whatever, but you'd hope that they're like, yeah, no, completely understand. That's awesome. I'm really excited.
Yeah.
And so you definitely kind of get some interesting responses for
Yeah.
that. But no, that worked well.
That process was pretty seamless.
Cool.
It was quite
Yeah.
good.
So if you were to plan your best friend's wedding, what were the few things that you would do differently, or is there anything that you would do differently at all?
I think I would try and enjoy that planning process a little bit more.
Yeah.
I think I was super, like, people were like, how's the wedding planning? I'd be like, oh, I hate it.
Yeah.
I didn't. Looking
Yeah.
back, I'm like,
Yeah.
nah, it's a really cool time in your life. But I think set your priorities. Like what are your non-negotiables?
Yeah.
Lock those in and then go from there.
Yeah.
Try and not let lots of external factors kind of influence what you do. Like it is your day. Like I think I got quite concerned with what other people thought or what would be good, what would be different. But
And a lot of that's in our head.
Yeah.
It's not like it was verbal or anything. You just assume that it's your
but
doing
I
it.
would, if I was helping or if I was planning, I'd be like, yeah, choose your kind of vibe and and make it happen because it's so worth it.
Yeah.
I can't speak. I think like food trucks are such a cool way to go.
Yeah.
Like I would so do that again. I would recommend that to anyone.
I think
Just that whole
it's
kind of
just
vibe.
like a type of wedding that
Yeah,
it just happens.
that's it. Just
like either you
get
choose
your-
a venue
Yeah.
that provides
Yeah.
everything, or
Yeah.
you choose
Yeah.
another one where you can bring.
Because
things.
we were at
Get your
times we were
style
like,
and
geez,
go
there
from
can be
there.
some benefit in that, because if it was all put together, that would be pretty seamless. And
Yeah.
maybe that's where Sam kind of came
Yeah.
in and managed to pull things together,
Yeah.
or and you did an amazing job.
And
I
kind of
think that's
planning
an
Stick to your
important link
guns.
as well. The wedding coordinator on the
Yeah.
day,
Yeah.
like between a venue with staff and food and all
Yeah.
of that, and a venue without it. I
Yeah.
think if you just put a coordinator on there,
Yeah.
then it doesn't matter
Yeah.
Yeah.
if you give them everything, they're coordinating
Oh,
everything.
and they think of things that you just don't because you don't know.
That's
Like
right.
who
Yeah.
got to be quick around here. Who lights the candles? Who
Yeah.
moves the floral arrangements
Yeah.
inside? Who moves the sign? Like
Yeah.
you just don't think about it because it's not on your radar
We
in
had a
the
transition,
day.
didn't we? We had
We had
seating,
quite a
and that seating
transition.
was from our table, so the chairs kind of came out. It was like moving parts.
Yeah.
It wasn't different spots, it was all one. And they don't have to be overly expensive either, because you could have start to finish journey if you feel, which is a good, like kind of the gold standard, but we actually really only engaged Sam for like the day, right? And still had
Yeah, that
meetings
was the big
prior,
part.
Yeah.
but she didn't have to like help us with collating stuff early days. But on the day, was probably couldn't have done without her.
Timings, liaising between like if we're a little bit late from photos to dinner, just all those
Yeah.
things that I would have no idea if there were little issues or niggles on the day. We had absolutely no idea.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. Would you turn up on time next time? Or?
I was actually only 20 minutes late, which was pretty good. And again, I text Sam when I was like, I'm leaving now.
Yeah.
So, and she
You're only 20 minutes late, right?
Yeah.
So 15 is the official time that...
Oh, is it? Nice.
15 is the official time. 20 is also normal.
Not bad. At least it wasn't hours leave me hanging.
Oh, the only thing was that it was so bright.
I know.
I think it was overcast
It was
at 3. It was perfect.
Everyone was sitting
it
down.
was so bright
ready.
at 20 past.
And then it was hot.
Asking 12 tables to maybe paint a grey paint over
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, goodness.
Black painting maybe. Everyone was sitting down. It was overcast, and then we stood up, and then you turned up.
Yeah.
What would you do if you were planning a mate's wedding?
I think it may not be during the planning part, but the first part was...
Because he doesn't know about the planning part.
Knew that would come up. I would... On the day, working backwards from there, I'd probably just... And what they did for me, my groomsmen and our bridal party, our bridesmaids, would be just to help... strip away the worry about timings or to enjoy it. Like we enjoyed every moment, but I think you tend to think I've just got to get to the ceremony and get through the vows and then get through the kiss, and like all eyes are on you, and then you want to get your photography. And we were in the moment, which was good, but I suppose it's a weird feeling for anyone planning a wedding that you are the focal point. If you've managed to go to other weddings previously, it's an easy day. You have so much fun, you love it. The next step up is being in the bridal party or being an MC. You put a lot of pressure on yourself, or you're on show, but really it's not your show.
Yeah.
But being the couple is like you go from that to everyone's there for you, to photos, to speeches, and then I think after speeches, after first dance is kind of when you go, oh, I can relax now. But fortunately, had guys who managed to keep us on track and just relax during it. I had Jacob was up front with me, and it was funny where we got our photos. The day before we managed to find a spot on the farm where we could go off and do photos over like a cliff and an Everglade. And the lady who runs the farm has a lot of weird and wonderful animals, these exotic pheasants and all sorts. And she drove me down there and said, look, you got to be really careful. You got to drive like under 5 kilometers if that's even possible. And and so when we went off for those photos, Jacob drove and he was maybe going 6 or 7 kilometers. And I was like, slow down, mate, slow down. You're going to kill these pheasants. It's going to ruin our day. He was having a good laugh and everyone was laughing. But it's funny. You're kind of like... you're highly strung and you're trying not to be, but there's a lot on the line. Yeah. And I think I joked about the timings, but we had thought we'd done really well at setting all our timings, but it's hard. You got one shot and you don't know how long speeches are going to take or food service. And so Sam again helped really well with keeping that as much as we could, but ultimately reminding us that it doesn't matter. No one knows.
I think no one knows, and it's your day.
That's the biggest probably takeaway I'd say is nobody knows. Yeah. So if you're speeches dinner was supposed to be at 6, but it's 6:15 or 6:30, or speeches were supposed to be 7 till 9, and it's 8 till 10.
People just need to be kept in the loop, and that is all that vendors care about. They just want to know.
Another thing would be, I think, or helping someone else plan, but I suppose it was difficult to get around everyone. Yeah, you make a good crowd. I felt bad. I think Alice's family and extended family were at one time when I saw them throughout the night, but probably not as much time as I felt I should have when we came away. Or certain groups of mates that you see, you get in a good chat with, and then you're like, you gotta try and make sure you see.
And you have that one friend that keeps targeting you and keeps coming around. You're like, I've seen you 100 times.
Getting drunk. And you're like, it's weird because any of these people you could spend hours with, but it's funny because they're all there together, and it's the first time that you know everyone. Yeah. Any other wedding, you're a friend from a group or your family, but you're like, oh, geez, these people are all here for us. And coupled with that was I can't remember who told us, but someone said make sure you attempt to stay together or find a lot of time. Yeah. So we didn't get separated too much, and we also had a cool moment on the dance floor where we I think it was you initiated, grabbed me, pulled me aside, and one thing I was nervous about was you do the first dance and then everyone kind of gets involved for a bit and then it can tend to like peter out, and I was like, I don't want to be awkwardly like hosting a party and everyone's sitting down, and you're like, oh no. But
That was
about an hour
moment.
and the band were awesome, and everyone, the guys were doing worms and and some pants down, I think, Dom. But everyone was dancing. Alice pulled me aside. I was like, look at all like our people enjoying, and people were just having so much fun. It was cool.
It was
a cool
a
moment
really
to like be
amazing
able to sit
moment.
back
We
and
were
be
standing
like,
where the band was, just looking, and it was just pumping, and it was, I was just like,
and geez, people were,
we did it.
people danced from what, 8:30? People
we
danced
did
from
it.
like 8:30 to 12:30. Like
It was
probably
amazing.
probably like 80 people. That was cool. And that was probably where we felt like box ticks. Like
That definitely was the moment
it was
that I was
our
like,
kind of wedding.
wow.
I actually asked Ryan, I was like, should we just book something now and just stay back? Because we had done, and I've just I personally I love after parties and like parties after you finish work. And because I come from DJing experience as well, just like after party is a big thing for me. If you say there's an after party, I'm like, okay, where is it?
You had another one the next day, didn't you? I thought otherwise,
I didn't even know that. I had no idea.
It wasn't. It was just like I think a half a day or something. But I did have to shoot.
Yeah, that's right.
Otherwise, 100% I would have booked something and then we would have stayed back.
We would have loved it. And
now that because we know a few people from the group as well, so it's
and that's what we could say about all of our vendors as well. We would have happily have had them stay because everyone felt like a friend. And
it was cool. It was a cool space.
We could not have asked for more.
Can't really think of anything like during the wedding. I mean, you did all the planning, so I wouldn't have much input. But
an admission.
I don't know. It's hard. It's
I'll record this and give
It's recorded forever.
It's a good tester, isn't it? Because I think we were a little bit yin and yang. Alice was doing majority of the work, and I was just keeping her on track.
You did
because it is a tough and stressful time, but it's good to have people around you invested, and people really come to the party either on the day or in the lead up. That's cool. It's cool to see.
I guess the one last thing that I wanted to ask was, because it came up during our discussion, was so you had planned for 40K, it ended up 70K, so almost double. When you look back at it, do you think it was the right decision, or would you think you would have wanted to save some?
Look, we were lucky to be in the position that we were to afford that type of wedding, because it was literally the wedding of our dreams. There is not one thing that I wish went differently or I wish I had, honestly. And we were lucky, like we had parents helping and we had our house, like we said. So honestly, there's nothing I would have changed. Also, it's not totally a justification, but we were like, look, in the whole scheme of our lives, 5 to 10 grand more. I mean, we said that a few times from 40K, but it's. I felt like it was worth it. And it's a big gamble, and especially when we were definitely relying on weather. And that kind of stuff. And that's another thing that was really put into perspective, is watching other couples go through those next few weeks of cancellations and all sorts. But I wouldn't change anything.
Point. I'll probably begin with the end in mind. So that was it. We think, if we look back on this, is it? And it was a genuine question. Because if the answer was I think we're being emotional or silly, then we would have like cut it back. But we're like, no, I don't think the difference in cost is going to change the way we feel about it. And when you look back at marquees of life, getting married, having kids, buying houses, whatever, trips, I suppose you're not going to look back at them and go, oh, geez, I really wish it just been a little bit cheaper, and it might have changed the course. And it may be different. I suppose I was, 32, a little bit older. I got married. There's 6 years between Alice and I, but it might be different for couples that are 24 and getting married or 40, I suppose, So, we were in the position where it didn't affect the housing spot, and it worked out okay. And like you say, perspective, other people, and we're lucky to be here, and thought, no, we're going to enjoy it. So
no, thank you for that. The reason I ask is because now that we're talking to all these different types of couples in different stages of their journey, and they all have different ways of planning their wedding, and that's why I wanted to do this. But it's really good to know, and thank you so much for sharing all the info.
That's all right.
Thank you.
Thank you for coming and sharing all this, and I'm really hoping a lot of people do get to learn a lot from you.
It would be so helpful.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, but it's nice to be able to talk about it again. It's actually been ages. I mean, it's been 6-7 months since we got married, and we probably haven't talked this much about it. But it's
it's cool to reflect on it.
To do it again.
Yeah. No worries, mate. Appreciate your help on the day and today. It's cool.
Thank you.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yay!